Hi guys, and welcome to another episode of Becca's Backyard. It's me, Becca, right here in my backyard on this nice, beautiful fall day. And I am ready to share with you some stuff, some of my inside thoughts outside. But this week, my thoughts are kind of racing. I've had a really busy couple of weeks, and I'm going to be that busy until the end of November. Come on, December, I can get there. But I've had a lot of thoughts going on. So I made myself a little bullet list for today's episode because there's stuff I want to talk about. And I don't like this to be scripted, but or unedited or whatever, however I say it. I want it to be real. But I also want to make sure I talk about the stuff that I talk about. And so I'm feeling tired, and sometimes my brain will struggle with keeping my thoughts straight or making sure that I don't kind of veer off track. So just in case that happens, I made myself a little list for this week. It was an exhausting week for me. I had a little business trip at the beginning of the week, and an exciting project that I'm excited to share with you guys. I got interviewed for a project that's going on, that's in the very beginning stages, called the A-List. If you've ever seen anything called the Black List, there's also a Latino list, a trans list, an out list, a few others. And they are finally giving the attention to the spectrum community and the people who make up our culture. So I'm honored to say I was one of the first two people interviewed for this project. It should be out in about a year and a half or so, I think, in its completion. So keep an eye out for that, and I'll keep giving you updates. But whatever, that was the business trip that I went on. Walter came, of course, especially knowing that I would be nervous at certain points, and that I was going back to the city. We were back to New York, so we took Walter, and I took them. I took both of them, Antonio and Walter, with me, and it was amazing. I mean, Walter once again surprised. He did a fantastic job. He does better than I do most of the time, and especially on this occasion, we had a little incident at the airport with somebody not understanding the rights of someone who travels with an emotional support animal, nor the ADA regulations. So that was an interesting beginning to my trip to New York. And then I got home, I had a bunch of work to catch up on, and it was just a really busy week. But it's been very busy like that for me, period. So what I've noticed is that I haven't had a lot of writing time. I'm going to check, because that was, I think the thing I wanted to talk about next was my write. Yes. Okay, so yesterday, let me tell you what I did yesterday, because it was epic for me. Because I've been so busy for all of this stuff, I was so tired this week, and I held my stuff together and used what spoons I had to get through the early portion of the week, and then the rest of the week, make sure I got my responsibilities taken care of. And by Friday, I was exhausted. I mean, barely able to function about eating and getting ready for the day, but still with just a few more personal chores to do. So I eked those out on Friday, and then by Saturday, I was like, that's it. I can do no more. I have hit my end, you guys. And that's what happened. So I did an official do nothing day. That's right, nothing. Nothing that I didn't want to do. Because everything that I do takes energy and spoons and things like that. So I spent a lot of time on social media, but I didn't really engage. And I watched a bunch. Oh my God, I was in a major binge of Ghost Adventurers, which is, I guess, guilty pleasure, although I don't feel that guilty for it at all. It's a ghost hunting show, and that was on a big mega marathon. It's been on the Travel Channel, so I watched a slew of that and a bunch of Halloween movies, and got my October on, and didn't get out of my pajamas, and ordered food for delivery, and officially did nothing. Let my laundry wait for today, everything, and it was amazing, because I was really feeling just exhausted. I couldn't put anything else out into the world anymore. I needed to really recharge and just suck in everything for a day, and that's what I did. But in my perusings online, I've been noticing, over the last couple of weeks, I guess, that I'm getting more and more agitated by some of the behavior that I'm seeing online. And I think that's for two reasons. I think people are just, in general, there's a lot of things to be angry and upset about in the world right now. And so there's a lot of that running through everything. But also, I think, I'm kind of paying attention to it a little bit more, because I've not had the energy to put anything out there that's positive, which is what I really try to do. I kind of, in my own way, fight all the negativity with putting some positivity out into the world, because I can't think of a better way to handle it than to sort of reverse it on itself. So that's kind of one of the things I've been doing. And it was getting really hard to reverse it on myself. And one of those reasons for that is, like I said, I haven't had a lot of time to write. So you guys noticed my social media, it's been a lot of repetition of the same blog posts, a lot of the same memes, because I literally haven't had any energy to create or like make anything, because I've just been so busy keeping up with what I put out into the world last year, I guess, which is a good thing in its own way. And so I've had to come to terms with sort of what that means for me as a writer, and since writing is part of my self-care, what that means for my self-care routine. But in feeling that discomfort, because it's been uncomfortable to not have the time to write, I just was getting annoyed, and I was seeing how cranky it was making me and how touchy I was getting. And it was like I was suddenly aware of how much criticism and negativity is happening out there. Just, little things where you're like, oh, you couldn't just leave that alone. You had to say something about that. And just a lot of that kind of nitpicky stuff. And I think to myself, it's so annoying to me. It's just so annoying to me for a lot of reasons. First of all, I try to keep clear of that kind of stuff in my life. But also it goes against everything that I sort of believe in. And I, this morning, I finally I was poked for the last time, I want to say. It was the final poke, and the straw that broke the camel's back, or whatever it is, ridiculous thing that they say, hey, Spectrum Women, that would have been my addition to the collaboration if I had had time and energy to write. So I've really been feeling that, and I thought to myself, well, that's part of it, but this morning, I think, really it just ticked me off. And it was like the last thing. It wasn't any big deal by itself, right? So it was just not even on my page. It was on an organization's page, and it was another page, commenting it. And so I was like, okay, well, this is silly. It's like not even a person having a conversation with a person or having a comment in that way. It was like an invisible, entity, an anonymous entity, and another anonymous entity were kind of having at it or whatever. And it was like, it was a lot of the, you shouldn't be doing this, and you can't do that, and this is wrong because it's wrong, and blah, 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 and this is why it doesn't work, and this is broken, and you shouldn't be, blah, 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 and a lot of policing, right? Policing behavior. And what I see from that is there's nothing tangible that comes from that. It doesn't help the situation in any way. It just pits people against each other and makes people angry, and instead of constructively saying in some way, I disagree with you because, and here's what I do differently because I think this way is better. And better was the crux of the whole thing. Like, I'm better than you is what, these comments all feel like they mean to me. And it takes energy to be that way. It takes the same energy that it takes to create and do and be and make things and be positive, is the same energy that you're using and wasting on being negative, right? And that's what I feel. I get annoyed at it because it's a giant waste of energy. And there is nothing that ticks me off more than wasting energy, because as someone who knows how valuable energy is to me, I can't believe that people choose to waste any that they have to spare. That drives me nuts. So yeah, it just hit, it kind of hit me. And so I wrote this post this morning, and I wrote it on my personal page, which I try to keep for people that I know in real life, so that there's some sense of reality to it. So in that way, it's my private Facebook, and I just went at it. So I'm going to read it just, for fairness. It's not perfect, but it's just what I was thinking about this morning. So so much negativity and latent anger flowing around these days. It's in every comment. Why is the first response to everything to tear someone else down so you can prove you are better? Better is doing, not talking about doing. Better is educating, not pointing fingers. Better is listening without a prepared response. Better is not eliminating the competition. Better exists only in competition. You suck, therefore I am better is not how change happens. choosing mindfully how and where to spend your energy is better. Be better, right? Those were my thoughts this morning, right? About just how everyone's been. And then I thought, well, what can I do about it? Well, right now I really don't have the time and energy to write, and that comes in cycles. Like, I came to terms with that. I understand that this stuff comes in cycles for me. I have periods of time where I'm creating and periods of time where I'm doing the business that comes from creating. And I have to give myself a little bit of relaxation about the periods that happen where I'm not writing, because the times will come when I will have the space and time and quiet to write, hopefully sooner than later. But in any case, what could I do in the meantime? Because I'm a big doer. I like action. I don't like to just sit around and complain. So there I was, really like ticked off just about this general thought that this was the final straw of it. And I said, well, you know what I'm going to do? I have to make my video today. And what I'm going to do with you guys, and it's going to be a little bit longer than I usually make them, but it's worth it, I hope, is I'm going to share with you guys how I reframed the way I was thinking and how I kind of removed the negative from my life and replaced it with a lot more positive, and how I got my thinking to kind of be there. So it was, because I feel like if I can make it easier for somebody else to make their life more positive, then maybe, just maybe, we'll have a little less negative out there. So here's what I did. When I first started, reading about all of these kind of self-care type books, there was a lot of repetition of the idea that you don't want to put out into the world what it is that you're trying to clear out, and you don't want to participate in sort of the negative that's out there if you don't want that in your life. And that meant for me, especially, that I spend a lot of time on social media, and clearing the negative out of your social media is really hard. People like to be negative. They feel safe enough to be critical and to be opinionated and online in a way that they wouldn't be necessarily in real life. And so how was I going to do that? Well, one of the things I think I was known for most of my life, and it was absolutely a coping mechanism for me, and sometimes still is definitely to be a really sarcastic and dry-witted person. That's sort of my sense of humor, and that's fine. But I noticed that whenever I had the opportunity, I was sticking a sarcastic comment in there. And whenever I saw a meme that I thought was funny, it wasn't just a joke or a funny picture. It was something that had that sense of sarcasm. And with sarcasm usually comes a little bit of negativity, a little bit of better than thou, and that kind of stuff. And so the first thing I started to do was I started to stop myself from adding to that pile, because there's plenty of it out there, and there's a time and a place for it and all of that stuff. But I had to stop contributing to it. And another thing I did was I started to clear my feeds of negative stuff, and started to add the positive things. Literally delete the negative things and add the positive things to my Facebook feed, which sounds silly, but when I stopped seeing it all the time and I stopped adding to it all the time, I was suddenly seeing and doing and adding to things that were positive. So I literally deleted all the irony pages that I followed and all of the dry wit humor type things that I followed, and I stopped liking things that I thought were a little too negative for me. And it was almost like a verbal diet. It was like, I'm taking this stuff out of my diet. It was like, this isn't healthy, I'm gonna remove it. And it sounds like a silly way to start removing it, but if you spend a lot of time doing those things, that's a good chunk of my life that I was letting all that negative stuff in. So that's where that started. And then I started only sharing things that I thought came from a really positive place. And then I started creating things that I only that came from a positive place, or a place where you could be learning or doing something to move things forward, right? That's where I started to shift my writing to, not so much complaining about all the unfairness that I know exists, but instead saying, well, but this is the way that I'd like it to be, right? And talking about what could be and how it could be different and better, right? Instead of just complaining about what was broken. Which I had done in some of my writing, or been stuck there for a bit. So that was some of the stuff that I did early on. And don't you know, it all started to work, because I noticed that the content of my thoughts was now full of all of these positive thoughts, instead of laughing at these, this negative thinking, kind of, yes, funny on times, and there's a time and a place for it, but I was doing it a lot. And so it was nice to be sharing the space in my brain with some positive thoughts. And they felt silly in the beginning. I wasn't used to it and all of that stuff. But when I started to see the difference in the choices I was making outside of that space, and the conversations that I was willing to partake in, and it started to affect the people I was willing to work with, and the projects I was willing to be a part of. Something that started really small, as the idea of not putting any more negative out there, in particular on social media, and not taking in particular on social media, negative stuff. That little thing affected all of this real life stuff, because everything that I'm thinking is what is my life. You know, I bring that stuff into creation. I create those things. I manifest those things, right? Because I think about them all the time. So when I start thinking about other things all the time, or more of the time, that's the stuff that I started to create. And that's the stuff I started to like bring towards myself, and fill my life up with. And when you do enough positive stuff, you get to feel happy. That's the bonus. Is not only are you living true to yourself, and really learning to listen to yourself, yeah, but you're really growing as a person at the same time, and you're winning the whole time. And so that's my big takeaway for you guys. If you think that you're better than other people, then do better. Do better. Stop being so negative. Stop criticizing. The same energy that it takes to write those critical comments, you could be saying, it's better if you do X, Y, Z because, and you could be teaching somebody else how to be better. Or you could be putting better out into the world, instead of taking it upon yourself to be the police of other people's stuff. And I wrote a note to myself because there was something in particular I wanted to say about that policing thing, right? Stay on your own lawn. That's what I wanted to say, right? The concept of stay on your own lawn, right? If you have the time and the energy to complain about things on the internet, to judge other people's opinions and what it is that they're doing, and if you have the time and energy to be putting that out there, then that means you're not paying attention to what you're doing. That means you're not focused and mindful about what it is that you're putting out in the world, because you're too busy paying attention to what everyone else is doing. So stay on your own lawn literally means stop minding what the neighbors are doing on their lawn. Take a look at yours and think about what you could be doing to create a better lawn. And that's my big takeaway for today. It's a do better kind of day. Well, I hope to see you guys again next week. It's a little longish video this week, but worth it, I hope. And yeah, give me your comments. I read them. I really do. I respond to them. I try to intake them and do stuff about them and kind of mention it. So please, the interaction with you guys is the fun part. And I guess that's it. So I'll see you guys next week. Have a good one.